Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, a local house was shot at because they had Trump signs in the window. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
The Department of Justice has charged 10 far-left Antifa militants over their alleged role in organizing an ambush attack on police officers at the Prairieland ICE detention facility in Alvarado, Texas. Now, they targeted these ICE agents with gunfire and explosives. Is anybody surprised by this? Is anybody surprised by this at all? Because what the left has been doing is ratcheting up more and more and more the rhetoric. Now, crazy people are going to do what crazy people do. It's not Bernie Sanders' fault that some lunatic went and shot up a congressional softball game, even though the guy said he did it because Bernie Sanders said he was going to lose his health care because Republicans were going to take it away. But at the same time, shouldn't you be dialing down the temperature, bringing down the temperature when all this was going on? But that doesn't stop the left. They keep ratcheting it up and ratcheting it up and ratcheting it up. So are you surprised when somebody takes matters into their own hands who's a crazy person? Look, think about it this way. If you tell everybody all the time that ICE agents are Nazis or the Gestapo. Oh, wait, hang on. He didn't say Gestapo, Tim Waltz. He called him Gazpacho or something like that. So if you call him the Gazpacho all the time, then you're in the mood for a tasty treat. But no, if you call people Nazis all the time, some lunatic is going to believe it and say, well, then I got to do a Project Valkyrie, and I got to take these guys out, which seems to be exactly what's happening. This is what's going on. Attacks against ICE agents have gone up over 700%, according to Tom Hoffman. In fact, he called out this rhetoric just today.
What do you make of the organization and sophistication level of this? And what are you doing to protect your agents in light of these attacks?
Well, look, unfortunately, Martha, I said over 2 months ago, I said on your network, numerous networks, I do a lot of interviews, I said over 2 months ago, if the rhetoric continues against ICE agents and Border Patrol agents about being compared to terrorists, like Congressman J. Paul did, being compared to Nazis and racists, that it's going to end with a use of force, that either a criminal is going to die or an officer is going to die. I've seen this recipe before. I knew it was coming, and I don't think it's over. And look, this is a well-planned attack, as the person said, and we're investigating on the connections between the Texas incident and the incident in the Alvarado facility, the two incidents of Border Patrol and ICE. There are some connections, but I'm not going to get in the middle of that criminal investigation. It's ongoing. There's a well-planned attack, and it's because of the rhetoric. These nuts that want to take it beyond protesting to criminal activity, they're getting rhetoric from the members of Congress, the senators who compare ICE to the Nazis, and Congressman J. Paul compared to the terrorist organizations. So these people, these fringe groups, feel emboldened. If a member of Congress can attack ICE, why can't we? So in response to this, ICE facilities, the security protocol has been heightened to the highest levels, along with Border Patrol facilities. And but here's what they need to understand. We're not going to stop enforcing immigration law. President Trump made a promise to the American people to secure the border. We had the most secure border in the history of the nation today. Now we got a lot of illegal alien, criminal, public safety threats, national security threats we need to find and remove. This is not going to slow us down. We're going to do this job.
Did you notice whose name he kept mentioning? Jayapal. He means Pramila Jayapal. The Democrat from Gaza, who unfortunately is one of our representatives here in Washington State, especially here in the Seattle area, the one who keeps comparing ICE agents to Nazis, the one who keeps making these awful videos, interviews about ICE agents and calling them awful names. And here's something else regarding what she's doing. Let's not forget that Pramila Jayapal is having resistance trainings across the country. She is egging this on. The incident in question occurred on July 4th, which included black-clad militants described as wearing military-style clothing allegedly opening fire on police, launching fireworks at the ICE facility, and defacing property with phrases that I can't repeat on air. Now, these lunatics sound a lot like Antifa, but I noticed something interesting. I'm looking at their mugshots right now. White, 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 white. It's a bunch of white privileged kids who are mad at the system. These are the ones who have been indicted for this. The 10 defendants, all of whom reside in Texas, were arraigned on Monday in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas and have each been charged with 3 counts of attempted murder of federal agents, 3 counts of discharging a firearm in relation to a crime of violence. I mean, I'm looking at these guys, and they look like they all just graduated college. This is crazy that now they are ambushing ICE agents. Are you surprised that these Antifa types and other activists, when nobody stops them from vandalizing a courthouse in Portland for 120 days in 2020, and nobody stops them from vandalizing a federal building in downtown Seattle, this is the natural progression of when there are no consequences to their actions. Don't forget, our friend Katie Daviscourt, for over a month now, has been covering what's been going on down in Portland, where these lunatics are attacking federal officers every single night. And another 4 Antifa riot suspects have been federally charged. 3 of them are facing serious felonies. According to Katie at the Post-Millennial, the 4 are accused of violently rioting at the 4th of July direct action where the local ICE facility was besieged again. Do you think maybe we didn't hear much about those No Kings protests, part 2? Because you now have people ambushing ICE agents on the same day these things were planned for? Riley Maxwell Freeman, 26 of Portland, has been charged by criminal complaint with the felony offenses of assaulting a federal officer with a deadly or dangerous weapon, possession of an unregistered destructive device. He faces 20 years in prison. Ian Joseph McCarthy, 35 of Portland, has been charged with felony offenses of assaulting a federal officer, depredation of government property, allegedly using bolt cutters to destroy a card reader and cut the fiber optic cable system for the facility, as well as punching and assaulting officers when he was arrested. Andrew Lee Wyatt Markham. Do any of these names sound ethnic to you? Sound like a bunch of white kids. Has been charged by criminal complaint with felony offense of assaulting a federal officer and vandalizing the building. Jeremy Andrew Hummel of Portland has been charged with misdemeanor offense of depredation of government property. All 4 were released without bail on July 7th by a federal judge. That's now 21 Antifa suspects who have been charged in Portland. This is beyond crazy that this continues. Well, now this has gotten national attention. And Tom Homan said today that he's going down to Portland to see what's going on.
Not only that, I'm going to head to Portland. I'm going out there. They're not going to bully us or you know, we're going to do the job. We're going to do it in Portland too. But for the mayor of New York City and Chicago, President Trump made it clear 2 weeks ago. We're going to double down and triple down on sanctuary cities. Yes. Why? Not because they're blue, because we know they're releasing public safety threats to the streets every day. Like Florida, we agree with all the sheriffs in Florida. They're taking our detainers. They're not releasing illegal alien public safety threats. They're calling us. So we can spend less resources in Florida and send them to New York, to Chicago, and to Portland, and L.A. We're going to double down and triple down on sanctuary cities. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, then we'll go to the community and we'll find him. Or we'll do more worksite enforcement. We'll find him at the worksite. And when we do these things and we ramp up that enforcement, we're going to find others who aren't a criminal target, but they're in the country illegally. We're going to arrest them too. So what you're going to get, sanctuary cities, is exactly what you don't want. More agents in your communities and more collateral arrests. That's what we're going to do. We're doubling down, tripling down. So for those who say they're going to keep ICE out of the city, good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. Be safe.
So then how do we get them to come down here? We want to see them take on Antifa here in Seattle, as I've been asking for a very, very long time. When are we going to get a U.S. attorney here in Seattle for Western Washington? We have a temporary one, but we need a full-time one appointed by the Trump administration. It's good that he's heading to Portland, and kudos to Katie Daviscourt. If not for her reporting that she's been doing every single night for over a month, I don't think something like that would have ever happened. Then you look at what's going on in these blue cities. When Tom Homan says they're going to be going into these blue cities more and more, these sanctuary cities more and more, which is exactly what the left doesn't want, he has to do that because of these sanctuary policies. MacArthur Park in Los Angeles is not a nice place. Used to be a nice place, but now it's known for drugs and violence. I want you to think about it this way. You remember when Ballard Commons was overrun with drug use and homelessness and all that in the summer of love in 2020? You remember when they were bringing bodies out of the place from the overdoses and the shootings and everything else? That's what MacArthur Park looks like. So what happens? ICE agents go in and raid MacArthur Park. Because among the people there is a lot of criminals, and if you find a lot of homeless, you're going to find a lot of drug dealers. And what do they have a lot of in California? Oh, right, Mexican gangs, Venezuelan gangs that are dealing drugs to the homeless, that are dealing drugs to the criminals, that are dealing drugs in MacArthur Park. So LA Mayor Karen Bass gets all mad, saying there are children playing here. Okay, any children playing in MacArthur Park, that's not the safest place to be. But here's something else. This is a really, really horrible message the left is sending. They treat it as if a kid sees a cop or some member of the military and they're scarred for life. I grew up having cops in every single synagogue, in every single day school, in every single camp I went to. It's just a fact of life of being Jewish, as people are always threatening us. So the security guards and the cops and everybody else became our friends. Do you get mad when the kids go to Seafair because they see members of the military? Of course not. Oh, wait, I forget the left. Anytime now. Wait a second. We're in Seafair month, right? They've already started the events. We had Gasworks Park. We had the fireworks. That means any day now, we're going to start seeing the boycott the Blue Angels or the stop the Blue Angels from coming to town from the wackos in Columbia City, right? That's going to happen any minute now. Oh, climate change, whatever excuse they have this year. But they act like every member of law enforcement and every member of the military is somehow a Nazi. That's the insane lie that the left keeps telling you. So Karen Bass... Hey, Karen, if I want to know how to burn down a community overnight, I know just who to call. All right? Stay in your lane, lady. If I want riots to overtake a city, we know just who to call. So she's saying, no cops in this park. You know what, lady? If you did your job and kept that park safe and allowed law enforcement to do their job, ICE wouldn't have to come in and do your job for you. Now, mind you, what's crazy to me, absolutely crazy to me, is her demanding to speak to the chief of the Border Patrol over this incident. He had the best response whatsoever.
The federal government is not leaving L.A. I don't work for Karen Bass. The federal government doesn't work for Karen Bass. We're going to be here till that mission's accomplished, as I said, and better get used to us now because this is going to be normal very soon.
Exactly, which is if you don't do your job to stop crime, we're going to do it for you. You don't want to hand over the people you arrest if you ever actually end up arresting anybody who have immigration violations as well as criminal issues. They're going to keep coming into your city. And here's something. The left seems to think they're fighting some war of justice. They're not. It seems like the only ones who actually agree with them are these psycho Antifa types. CNN took every single poll on mass deportations and sealing the border. And guess what they found out? And this is CNN.
Deport all immigrants who are here illegally. 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters.
So this is popular with the American people. Eben in Bonnie Lake says over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, it feels like the Democrats have unofficially declared war on Republicans. All they have to do is ratchet up the rhetoric, and the most insane people do the work. I think you're 100% right. It's like that graphic we were sharing before Trump got into office. It's a Democrat stick figure holding the leash of an Antifa stick figure, and the Antifa stick figure says, "Can we riot yet?" And the Democrat stick figure says, "Wait for it. Just wait for it." It almost feels like that's exactly the consequence of that picture is what we're seeing happen right now. And then, parallel to this, you have a very real discussion over amnesty. Now, yesterday, President Trump said during one of the press conferences, was discussing whether or not he's going to extend citizenship to all the people who are here working in fields or working on farms or working in other places whose only violation is that they came across the border illegally. We're not talking about career criminals. And at the time, he said he wanted to find a path to citizenship for those workers. Now, a lot of people on the right went ballistic and said that's not what we voted for. And here's what he said today in response to that to try and clarify his comments.
There's no amnesty. What we're doing is we're getting rid of criminals, but we are doing a work program. Do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, this morning we talked about, of course, this was a top-of-mind question. This morning we talked about protecting the farmers and the farmland, but obviously this president's vision of no amnesty, mass deportation continues, but in a strategic way, and then ensuring that our farmers have the labor that they need. Secretary Chavez-DeRimmer has been a leader on this. Obviously, this comes out of the Labor Department, but moving toward automation, ensuring that our farmers have that workforce, and moving toward an American workforce. So all of the above.
We've got to give the farmers the people they need, but we're not talking amnesty.
So this is an important clarification, and it kind of sounds like what happened when we pitched the Golden Road to Citizenship idea. 2 weeks ago on this show, we pitched this idea, and we said, what if somebody has continuously resided in the U.S. for over 20 years, has zero criminal record, has never taken public assistance at all, has never, ever committed any kind of crime, pays violations, pays fines for the violations, because that's actually what you get for immigration charges, has sponsors, has a pathway to citizenship. A lot of you called in and said, rather than doing that, why don't we expand the guest worker program? So we're doing it legally. And then after the guest worker program, assuming you hit all those qualifications, then maybe we'll talk citizenship. And I'll tell you, I actually think that is a great middle ground where you say, here's the guest worker program. How do we expand this thing? And how do we make it right that you did break the law to come here? A lot of you also said, you know what I want to see first? I want to see the person leave, then come back. These are all things that should be discussed, but the left isn't interested in that. You want to make a law about immigration? Make a law. That's not what Pramila Jayapal is doing. What Pramila Jayapal is doing is having resistance labs across the country. What AOC and Tim Walz and all these other people on the left are doing is calling ICE agents Gestapo agents, comparing them to the Nazis. If you want to have a discussion about changing the law, you want to have a discussion about a guest worker program, then we're here for it. Then let's have that discussion. You want to discuss a process, a pathway to citizenship? Then let's have the discussion. But the left isn't interested in the discussion. They're interested in rioting and burning things down. And the left knows that Antifa is their stormtroopers. So as long as they continue saying the most inflammatory things, Antifa will keep doing their bidding. And that is exactly what's happening. Have you heard any Democrat talk about a guest worker program? Have you heard any Democrat say, how can we do a real pathway to citizenship, not mass amnesty? Of course not. Unfortunately, this is one of the things I didn't like that President Reagan did, was the mass amnesty. And when he did that, he now gave ammo to the left to always say, well, Ronald Reagan granted mass amnesty. That's not what anybody is talking about here. But unfortunately, the left, they want the chaos. They want the violence. They want the riots. But I want to know what you think, because I know the KVI audience is smart. I know you guys are sharp, and I know you guys think about these things. So I'm going to throw that question out there again. What do you think about a golden road to citizenship? Would you prefer some kind of guest worker program? What would do it for you? Let's get some conversation going. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, more of your calls, more of your texts, plus a house is shot at in our neighborhood. Why? Because they had Trump signs in the window. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 4 o'clock, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash with our latest giveaway. Make sure you're listening at 4 o'clock for the keyword to enter on our text line for your chance to win. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Look like you guys are really against the golden road to citizenship. This is kind of what Donald Trump was seeing when he mentioned possibly some kind of guest worker program yesterday. What President Trump is very good at is moving, adjusting the gameplay. When he says something and then he sees a lot of people on the right freak out over it, then all of a sudden he says, nope, we're not doing amnesty, maybe something else. So this text here from the 360, the only golden road I want to see is one that leads them right straight out of the country. No benefits, no nothing. Kick them out. John in Lakewood says border control first, golden path citizenship for a limited time, and guest worker programs afterward with strict accountability and law enforcement. Looks like a lot of you have a lot of opinions on this, so we go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Josh in Seattle. Josh, what's up?
They got to go back. I come from a family of immigrants. We waited in line.
See, that's a point that a lot of people made the last time we brought.
My son was a presidential guard. We waited.
That's the last time we brought this up, Josh. The last time we brought this up, that's what a lot of people said. The people I got the strongest reaction from were people like your family who said, we immigrated to this country, we waited in line, we did it right like everybody else. Why do they get to cut the line?
That's right. It's a slap in the face.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people said, and I think Donald Trump heard that loud and clear, which is why he said, we're not doing amnesty.
And I'm sorry, if you want them out of the country, stop hiring them.
Well, there's that too, but the problem is,
against the law.
Here's the problem. The problem is the Democrats go, we want higher minimum wages, but we want all these illegal to undercut the minimum wages. No wonder they're losing the unions. It's amazing to me the unions haven't completely turned on the Democrats for that one item alone. They say we want higher wages, and then they undercut them with illegals.
I tell you what, drive on down to Home Depot. You'll see them there. You know what they charge? $30 an hour, cash.
Yeah. And that's exactly where ICE is going right now.
We're not undercutting anybody.
That's exactly what's happening with ICE, because so many people are saying, yeah, we know where the illegals are. MacArthur Park. We know they're at Home Depot. We know they're at Lowe's. We know they're – I see them every single day when I drive on Rainier Avenue, past the Lowe's on Rainier Avenue. That's where Six Stadium used to be. Josh, great perspective. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Dave in Puyallup. Dave, what's up?
All right, always nice talking to you. I'll make this short and sweet. First of all, we need to get Jira Pill out of her position. She's a traitor to our country, and I am hoping she's listening. And then to all of our House of Representatives down there, they need to grow a pair. People are tired of being controlled by idiots, and that's what we have in most government positions. You want to tell us.
You want to know what an idiot Jayapal is? Jayapal pretended she came here illegally when she didn't, just to try and check that box. She lied the other day in Congress and said she came here illegally when she came on a student visa and applied for citizenship, as did other members of her family. That's how messed up in the head she is. She felt she had to lie about being an illegal alien.
Kind of like Pocahontas. You know, these people need to be. They literally need to be pulled out of office. She's an insult. Half these Democrats are insult to our intelligence.
Well, I mean, a lot of them don't have that much intelligence. Look at AOC, who was caught lying about where she's from. Now she's changing her story now that everybody found out she was from a posh suburb. Now she's like, well, I lived in both places. You ain't exactly Jenny from the block when you grew up in Yorktown Heights, Westchester. That's where I grew up. I know that area very well. Dave, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Pam from Lake Stevens says over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, community service or payments to the United States after illegal entry, along with the alien's clean record and contribution to the workforce, has to be fair to those who entered legally. See, this seems to be a running theme around here, which, guys, I totally get, totally understand. This is a great conversation. You guys want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Ain't nothing much. See, I've got a question for you, and I don't know if your listeners ever brought this up yet, but when is Pramila PayPal, or shall you say Jayapal, going to be removed from office? Because if she keeps calling ICE agents and other law enforcement people to stop posing Nazis, somebody is going to get killed.
Well, I'll tell you what. How about we do it this way? When is the GOP actually going to produce a candidate that can beat her, that's worth voting for? The last few election cycles, I didn't even know the person's name who was running against her. They were so useless. So let's start there and find a candidate who might actually have some viability. Appreciate the call, Leonard. Appreciate you being part of the show. Before I forget, this local story, I love how it's being covered by the media. All of them are trying to avoid saying what the motivation was here. Somebody opened fire on a home in Ballard early Sunday morning. Every single media outlet is showing the window with the bullet holes in it, and every single media outlet is saying, we don't know what the motivation was. Hang on, let me zoom in real close here on this picture. Let's see, I got a picture of Donald Trump. Thank you for protecting our children and our community. I've got a Police Lives Matter. I've got a sticker that says America, love it or leave it. And then I've got a Confederate flag here. Gee, what do you think the motivation was for the person who opened fire on this house and vandalized their cars and shot at their... This is a real head scratcher for me. Oh, you think maybe somebody in Seattle doesn't like Republicans? Yeah, that would be my guess. In fact, there's a giant American flag in the window here, and another sticker next to it that says, stand for the flag. And apparently, this isn't the first time the home has been vandalized. So basically, the home is vandalized because there are a bunch of Republicans and there are a bunch of people who support America. And the oh-so-tolerant people of Seattle don't like that very much. That's what it sounds like to me. Hey, you lefties are always worried about us gun nuts. How about the person who opened fire on a house because it has an American flag in the window? Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, President Trump nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize again. We'll tell you why this time when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came to the White House again yesterday to discuss the historic win over Iran in the 12-day war. And while they were having a press conference, it was actually kind of an awkward-looking press conference because you've got this table where clearly they're about to have lunch. Some of them are facing the press, some of them aren't facing the press. Either way, there were some great moments at this press conference. Plus, for me, I'd be like, dude, the plates here, the forks here, the knives here, it looks lovely. Can we just have the food already? Can we just bring on the good stuff? Because I assume the food's pretty good at the White House. This don't look like McDonald's was being served at this one.
It's like having one of those meetings at work when you have the bagels sitting right on the table
Yes.
or something off to the side, the
Yes.
box lunches, and you have to wait and listen to your boss talk and prattle on about something.
Oh, God, we've had that happen so many times. So, for example, even a cruddy cake for somebody's birthday, even when you know that garbage cake is sitting there, but somebody's like, and it's Bob's birthday, and we really like Bob, and can we all awkwardly sing happy birthday for Bob?
Yeah.
Right? You're still going, dude, there's cake. Can we, move this along? Because that
Pizzas are
terrible
the
cake
worst.
is right.
Pizzas are the worst. You got 7 pizzas up
Yeah.
there smelling up the whole
And
joint.
you're like, they're getting cold
Yeah.
as we speak. We got stuff from the sausage place down the street, from the beer hall, and it's getting cold while you're yammering about Yes, exactly right. So it's all sitting right there. I assume at the White House they got better warmers than we do here at KVI. But Marco Rubio was listing all the foreign policy wins that they had.
Well, it's just going through a list here, Mr. President, and I think the Vice President's pointed out to the great team you have, and all these achievements that have happened domestically. But you think about it, under your leadership, we prevented and ended a war between India and Pakistan. NATO's now at 5% for the first time ever, the highest numbers ever. A peace deal between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. A 12-day war that ended with an American operation that we're the only country in the world that could have done. Hopefully, pretty soon, a peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia. The entire Middle East and the infrastructure of it has the potential now to change because of Syria and Lebanon, and it hasn't even been 6 months.
Sure.
It hasn't even been 6 months, so it's a great testament to your leadership in this.
Well, thank you very much, and you've done a fantastic job.
Can you think of any administration that has that many foreign policy wins? I think the true unsung hero of this administration is Marco Rubio. I mean, he's going to get a lot done because he's got 6 jobs. But I think he was actually flying the bombers over to Iran. I think I saw that. I'm just kidding. But he is so good at what he does. That's what you need, people who know what they're doing. You look like you want to say something. You look like you want to weigh in here. Marco Rubio? I'm not talking about Trump. I'm not talking about J.D. Vance.
He's very good at what he's doing there. Yes, he is.
Oh, I see. He's very good at buttering up Trump is what Kevin's trying to imply there. Speaking of buttering up Trump, by the way, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, you're talking about massive wins in the Middle East for Israel, massive wins for America, massive wins for democracy, and massive wins for freedom. President Trump should have gotten the Nobel Peace Prize along with Bibi Netanyahu and all the other leaders who were part of the Abraham Accords. Should have gotten it back in 2020. But, the Nobel Prize Committee, they're not big on that kind of stuff. Well, once again, Donald Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Prize. By my math, that's 4 times in 5 months for 4 different issues, 4 different topics of foreign policy wins. Number 4 came yesterday when Bibi Netanyahu surprised Trump at the White House with the letter he sent to the Nobel Prize Committee.
The president has already realized great opportunities. He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak in one country and one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Trump seems genuinely shocked by this because he's at a loss for words. Trump is never at a loss for words. Now, actually, Bibi Netanyahu gave him something else. Somebody in Israel, let's back up a second. After the mission with the B-2 bombers taking out the Iranian nuclear facilities, there was a meme going around and it became real. There is a thing on Jewish doorposts called a mezuzah. A mezuzah has scrolls inside of it from the Shema, the prayer that Jews say every day, Hear, O Israel, God is one, God is the God of Israel. That's something that goes on our doorposts. It harkens back to the story of Egypt when they put blood on the doorpost to keep out the angel of death and came from there. It's something to keep Jewish families safe. So you do them in different shapes. Most people do a straight rectangle-looking box to hold the scroll. Some people have fancy designs. Inside my house, I got fun ones for my kids' bedrooms, Mets ones, baseball ones, animal ones, things of that nature. Somebody designed a B-2 bomber-looking one, which is kind of funny. Now, then somebody made a real version of it for sale. The problem is I don't have any door frames that can hold a giant B-2 bomber-looking thing on the door frame. Door posts are not that wide for something like that. But somebody made one out of the debris from the Iranian ballistic missiles. They made a B-2 bomber, and Netanyahu gave it to Trump as a gift, which I thought was kind of funny there. Now, when you talk about what's going on and why these two get along so well, is that Bibi Netanyahu summed it up really, really well.
And with us, we send our condolences to the bereaved families. I said these are momentous times, and they are. The President and I believe in a doctrine called peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes the peace. Our resolute action, the resolute decision of President Trump to act with us against those who seek to destroy Israel and threaten the peace of the world has made a remarkable change in the Middle East. The remarkable American B-2 pilots showed remarkable perseverance, persistence, and power. The soldiers of Israel fought like lions, our pilots struck like lightning, and our common alliance roared like thunder. And this is having a great change in our region. There are opportunities for peace that we intend to realize. We're working together on this. We have still to finish the job in Gaza, release all our hostages, eliminate and destroy Hamas's military and governance capabilities, because Gaza must have a different future for our sake, for everyone's sake. And no country will settle for less. We certainly will not.
Look what has just happened in the last year and a half. Hezbollah wiped out. Iran's nuclear ambitions wiped out. Houthi rebels put back on their heels. Syria, Assad was overthrown. Hamas almost completely obliterated. Look how we are on the verge of peace in the Middle East. Do you think President Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize? Do you think it should be for this? Do you think it should be for something else? Or do you think he doesn't deserve it at all? Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, more of your calls, more of your texts. Plus, a Houston official makes a really dumb and slightly racist comment about the floodwaters in Texas. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Sadie Perkins, who's a former official in Houston, who is clearly not a Republican, shall we say, had some really awful, worse than even Governor Jay Inslee's, former Governor Jay Inslee's comments about the floods in Texas that has killed over 90 people, including some girls at a sleepaway camp. Sadie Perkins decided to focus her wrath on the girls at the camp. Listen to this insane thing she posted on TikTok.
I know I'm probably going to get canceled for this, but Camp Mystic is a whites-only girls' Christian camp. They don't even have a token Asian. They don't have a token black person. It is a all-white, white-only, conservative Christian camp. If you ain't white, you ain't right, you ain't getting in, you ain't going, period. And I think that context needs to be said in this matter. It's not to say that we don't want the girls to be found, whatever girls that are missing or whatever right now. But you best believe, especially in today's political climate, if this were a group of Hispanic girls, especially with them being in East Texas, it should be most likely Hispanic. If this were a group of Hispanic girls out there, this would not be getting this type of coverage that they're getting.
Interesting you say that. Aside from the flat-out racism you're exhibiting there and the craziness, there are dead children, and you're worried about what color their skin is? Remember yesterday we told you a story about two girls who saved 20 campers, and that they were so worried they were going to get washed away, they wrote their names on their bodies so they could identify the bodies if they got washed away? Would you like to know the names of those counselors? Silvana Garza Valdez, Maria Paula Zarate, helped save 20 young girls during the Camp Mystic flood. They kept them calm, moved them to safety, and wrote the names on their arms for identification. Would you like to know where they're from, by the way? Do you need to guess with names like that where they're from? They're both from Mexico. Sadie, you could have said, look how amazing these girls of color did. If you want to go the racial route. Me, I look at them yesterday. Did I know their race? Did I know their origin? Did I know their names? No, I just knew it was an amazing story and they saved people. I don't care what color your skin is. These two girls are heroes. Absolute heroes for saving those girls. There are tons of heroes. Do you care what color the person is who rescues you? Should you care what color the person is who dies? No. Children were killed, and these crazy leftists are making about climate change and the color of people's skin, which is beyond insane. Beyond insane. Forrest Cat writes right here, what, it's okay if little girls drown if they're white? Sick, sick libs. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the stuff that people's brains have gone bad when they look at something like this and all they go is, well, their websites, all white girls. Really? You went looking for that. You went looking for this website. We've been covering this for days now. I've never once looked at the Camp Mystic website. That means you went looking for this insanity. Rather than hearing what the parents are saying, rather than hearing what the survivors are saying, rather than hearing what the first responders are saying, you went looking for the website to support your own false narrative, your own false bias, and one Google search would have told you this. I found this story just because it was going viral, but you went looking for the website because you wanted to push this racist narrative. Shame on you, Sadie Perkins. I hope you never hold public office ever, ever again. They're going to keep playing this on campaign commercials against her if she ever runs for office again. When we come back, my friends, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash, and why hasn't the Washington Checkbook account been updated since Doge Washington started revealing all their dirty secrets? We'll discuss when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, churches can now endorse political candidates, and why is the largest teachers union cutting ties with the ADL? But before we get to any of that, my friends, you work hard. You play hard. You need a getaway or perhaps some financial relief. We've got you covered with KVI's Take the Trip or Keep the Cash, sponsored by our friends over at Budget Tank Removals. This week, you can get away to Portugal with tram rides through Lisbon, castles in Sintra, and wine by the sea, or have a chance at $3,000 in cold, hard cash. Now, when I give you the keyword, you text only the keyword to the number I give you, and we'll get you in the daily drawing to get a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and you could win the trip or take the cash with KVI. Now remember, only enter the keyword, not your name, not your phone number, not Ari Hoffman, you are so handsome. None of that, just the word, and just to the number I give you, not to my social media accounts, just to the number I give you, to our text line. Today's word is fog, F-O-G, as in fog of war, as in London fog, as in, hey, you know what we get a lot of around here in the fall and winter times? Fog, F-O-G. Text the word fog to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Remember, you have until 5 o'clock to enter. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil. Reminder to check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your take-hour delivery order, plus so much more. So remember, you have until 5 o'clock to enter the keyword FOG to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Reminder, do not call us with the keyword. If you call us with the keyword, that doesn't count for anything, and Kevin gets frustrated. So don't do that. You text the keyword to 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, this happened yesterday, and this is why citizen watchdogs are so important in our area. This is why I love doing what we do. Now, let me take you back in time. Remember when Doge was first announced, how excited we got about that? We said, oh my God, they're going to find all the federal government's dirty little secrets and what they're spending ridiculous money on. And holy cow, the stuff they found that we're spending money on. Now, our frustration grew when we found out that Congress isn't making a whole bunch of the cuts. They're not doing a whole bunch of the Doge cuts. I mean, yeah, they're doing $9 billion in rescissions, but Elon Musk and his crew found what, like $500 billion in waste? Why isn't Congress cutting all of that? Remember, they found that mine in Colorado where they're filing actual paperwork on everybody's retirement in the federal government. Looks like a knockoff version of the mine from Terminator 3 at Crystal Peak that John Connor and Claire Danes hang out in when they're trying to survive the world, ending with all these Skynet launching the nuclear missiles. So this inspired a movement. Lots of states saw this and got really, really excited about it. I said on my show, way back when, 6 months ago, I said on my show, we really need a Doge Washington. And some of you did something amazing. Some of you took up the charge. You guys started looking into what the Washington State Legislature is spending our taxpayer money on, and you guys started using the Washington Checkbook. Now, anybody can look at this. One thing that Washington is actually usually good on is public disclosures and transparency. And it may take them a while, but eventually you get the records you want. And the Washington Checkbook was found by one of our volunteers, sent on over to us, and people started mining the data. The two accounts on Twitter that have been doing the lion's share of the work, Data Digs and Wake Up WA, otherwise known as Doge Washington, they've been doing the lion's share of this work, and they've been finding insane stuff. Insane stuff. Remember Rain City Jacks, where men go to, well, we're not going to talk about that because you got kids in the car because it's summer break and they don't have school right now. But we started exposing this stuff. Do you know what Doge Washington told me yesterday? They sent me a message. Ari, nobody's updated the Washington State checkbook since March. So I went back and looked at when we started posting all this insanity. And they haven't updated it since after Rain City Jacks, since after all the expenses on dog grooming, since after all the ridiculous art that had to do with pornography, since after the millions of dollars to teachers' unions. They weren't updating the thing. Now, my question to you is, do you think this was deliberate, or do you think this was government incompetence? Now, I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's government incompetence. But either way, that's not good. You're telling me that since March, the thing that you guys are supposed to update to spend money on has not been updated? So what did we do? I did one of my Doge from my Dodge videos. Like I do. I did that this morning. I do one every single morning. Right now, my friends from Renton Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram gave me a Jeep Rubicon to drive around. You could actually see it. I really have to take the roof off. I really want that sunshine coming down, or I want to put the canvas roof on it. It'd be a lot of fun. So they have the Jeep Rubicon, and I'm filming the video in there, and I post the video. Last night, actually, it was right before the show yesterday. I sent an email over to the Office of Financial Management for Washington saying, hey guys, this thing hasn't been updated in a while. Because I remember the last time something like this happened. Remember the Climate Commitment Act? It used to have a website that was very interactive, and you could search by company, and you could search by agency about who was getting all this money from the Climate Commitment Act. But then when people started mining the data out of it and saying, hey, that former lawmaker, Reuben Carlisle, who was one of the co-sponsors on the Climate Commitment Act, who's not in Congress anymore, he sure seems to be making lots of millions of dollars from the Climate Commitment Act. And look at all these other agencies. And wait a minute, 90% of the money from the Climate Commitment Act isn't actually going to anything involving climate change. It's going to a whole bunch of nonsense. Wouldn't you know that the website for the Climate Commitment Act stopped being searchable by agency, stopped being searchable by company, and stopped having all the information we wanted and made it really, really hard to find? So I ask my question again. Do you think this is deliberate, or do you think this is government incompetence? Let me know. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because wouldn't you know, after I posted the Doge for my Dodge video, after I sent them a request for comment, after some other people reached out, including our friend Todd Myers from the Washington Policy Center, who was on yesterday, wouldn't you know that magically the website was updated 15 minutes ago? Right in time for the Ari Hoffman show. Isn't that nice? Isn't that special? Do you think it got held up in the July 4th weekend? Or do you think it was, well, we hope nobody noticed, but now that Hoffman and Myers and all these other people are asking about it, maybe now we have a problem? Exactly. Joe Biden knows. He doesn't know much, but he knows that. He knows about government covering things up. He knows all about that, right? How's your health, Joe Biden? So we know that it wasn't updated until we sent all these emails, and now all these emails were sent, and now all of a sudden they're updating it. You suspect. I'm going to throw that out there. You suspect. Here's something else. Couldn't you guys have gone back to my email and said, hey, Ari, sorry, got caught in the 4th of July? Because you know what my email actually asked? My email said, is there a schedule delay? I gave them benefit of the doubt. I said, what's your schedule for updating the website? Instead of getting back to me, what do? They update the website, which means they got caught or they're that incompetent. Which one do you think it is? Let us know. Give us a call or a text. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Incompetence, or were they doing this intentionally? Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Jeff in Kent says over on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, text line, says totally deliberate in both cases, referring to what they did with the Climate Commitment Act and this one. I would tend to agree, especially with regards to the Climate Commitment Act. This one, we'll see if they do it again. This is why we need you, citizen watchdogs. Guys, if you want to help Doge Washington, you know what you want to do? All you got to do is Google Washington Checkbook, Washington State Checkbook, and this thing will pop right up. And you can start mining it for data also and start posting it on social media. John, over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, says the lack of updates on the Washington Checkbook are deliberate. They're trying to make the data foggy. Oh, I like the use of the word. I like the use of the word fog, which don't forget you have until 5 o'clock to enter that word. Here's something else. The other day, Mr. KVI himself got an email from Bob Ferguson. They weren't happy with an article I wrote about their spending priorities. They weren't happy with an article I wrote where I was calling out the fact that Bob Ferguson didn't make any meaningful cuts in the budget and instead decided to pass the largest tax increase in Washington state history. As opposed to contacting me, they contacted Mr. KVI himself, which, by the way, I know they have my email address because I've emailed them countless times and they never get back to me. You know where they stopped getting back to me? I know the exact moment. It was during the Gaza encampment last year when I sent then Attorney General Bob Ferguson's office an email. I said, there's all these Jewish students being discriminated against at the University of Washington. What is the Attorney General's office going to do about the rampant discrimination at his alma mater? Do you know what they got back to me with? They got back to me with, well, we passed the legislation for the hate crime hotline, and it goes live in 2025. Hang on a second. So the hate crime hotlines, you want the kids in 2024, in April, May of 2024, to contact the hate crimes hotline that didn't exist yet? By the way, how is the hate crimes hotline doing? We haven't called it yet today to see how they're doing. Let's see if they're still running that auto message. Hang on, let's give them a quick call here and find out.
You have reached the voicemail intake line for the Washington State Hate Crimes and Bias Incidents Hotline, where you can report hate and get support. We help connect people who have witnessed or experienced hate crimes or bias incidents in Washington State to resources and help. The hotline goes live in King, Clark, and Spokane counties on July 1st, 2025. We are not currently accepting calls. Please call us back on July 1st. Thank you.
Come on. Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
So it's literally a week later. A week after it was supposed to go live, it's still not live. Now, you can report stuff through their website of the Washington Hate Crime and Bias Hotline. Their website works, but the hotline doesn't work itself. I wonder if they're just like, maybe this was a bad idea because Ari Hoffman and all the KVI listeners keep spamming us all this stuff, which, by the way, keep doing that. Just keep leaving messages and melt the phone lines and keep sending them emails. It's pretty entertaining.
Bye.
Exactly. But getting back to the beginning of this story, when the governor's office was very cross with me about calling out their spending priorities and their lack of cuts in the budget, Brianna Aho, who's a spokesperson for Governor Bob Ferguson, told me in a statement, in response to Governor Ferguson's objections, the legislature reduced its revenue proposal from more than $21 billion to approximately $9 billion. Translation, us Democrats were going to hit you with $21 billion in new taxes to cover our reckless spending, but we settled for $9 billion, which is the largest tax increase in Washington state history. Be thankful, peasants! That's the translation of what they were doing. Things are so expensive here that Washington's median housing prices have gone up. Active listings have surged nearly 40% year over year over year. I got a rather nasty email after our first commercial break about my demonization of the homeless and supporting greedy landlords. Now, as a greedy property manager, not quite a greedy landlord, I have a bit of a stake in this. So can I just offer some perspective on why things are so expensive around here, especially housing? Let's do this for a second. Let's take your average mom and pop landlord who has a rental they saved up for and purchased. Along comes COVID. But before we get to COVID, what has been happening for years? I moved out here years ago because it was cheaper than living in New York. I had some help from my in-laws in purchasing my house. But it was still not a small sum of money, but at the time, it was very affordable to live around here. Luckily, we had some help. But you know what happened since then? The costs of everything have gone up. My property taxes are more than 3 times what they were when I bought my house 20 years ago. More than 3 times. On top of that, the regulations of what they make you do if you want to expand your house. So a lot of people now can't expand their houses, so now they're looking to upgrade houses. So now you're not competing against just me if you want to buy a house. You're competing against Bob, who Bob can't expand his house because the regulations are too strict, so he has to look for something that's already built that has the number of bedrooms he needs because Bob is expecting a new kid. On top of that, what happens is you have the hedge funds that come along and say, hey, you know what? This is a good hedge against inflation. We should buy some rental units. On top of that, you're competing against Homeless Inc., who comes along and goes, you know, that property right there, that would make an excellent, excellent, excellent Homeless Inc. property. And we could put 20 units where that one little property is. So now you're competing against me, Bob, and you're also competing against the hedge fund, and you're also competing against Homeless Inc. On top of that, like I said before about Bob, who couldn't build things, now contractors can't build the things they want to build. On top of that, you're hitting everybody with onerous regulations, which are making things more expensive. You're hitting us with the Climate Commitment Act, which is driving up utility costs. As you increase the property taxes, what else you're doing is you're making landlords who aren't going to eat that cost, they're going to roll it over onto the tenant. And the tenant goes, my greedy landlord is making my costs so much more expensive. Then comes COVID. And along comes COVID. And what happens? Every single landlord is now told your tenants don't have to pay rent anymore. And you're a bad landlord if you don't have enough of a reserve to take care of those tenants and live and let them have free rent for not 1 year, but 2 years, but 3 years. And then us in King County Bar Association, we're going to provide money to the lawyers to fight the landlord who wants to evict the squatters, because the squatters have figured out, wait a minute, I can move into this apartment and not pay rent for 3 years? Yeah, I'll move in and destroy the place. So now the landlord has to fix all that. On top of that, you now have the landlords who are saying, wait a minute, you just hit me with rent control. So now, because I don't know what inflation's going to do, and I don't know what costs are going to do, and I don't know what the city's going to do, and I don't know what the county's going to do, and I don't know what the state's going to do, I'm going to max out those rent increases every single time. So where it used to be I'd be happy to negotiate a rent with you that's reasonable, now I have to max it out because I have to make up for all the money I didn't make last time. I have to pay off the back mortgage payments. Thank God the thing wasn't repoed. Sometimes it was repoed by the bank. I have to make up all those costs. You wonder why it's not affordable to live around here anymore? That's the reason why. Because of government. It used to be affordable around here. Now it's not. Want a more simple example? DoorDash put this up on their website today, that Seattle is now the most expensive market for DoorDash because of their extreme regulations. Everything is more expensive around here, and we don't even know the full implications of all the taxes they hit us with because they just went into effect on July 1st. You want to know who's the problem? Government's the problem. It's not your so-called greedy landlord to the individual who sent me this very, very long message. Thank you for the email. I hope that answered your question. Government isn't the solution to a problem. Government is the problem, my friends. When we come back, we got so much more to discuss as the show continues. Coming up next, why is the largest teachers union cutting ties with the ADL? Well, it's the world's oldest form of hatred, and we'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. You might think that this is going to be a great story of the left eating their own, but it's actually far more nefarious. My hatred of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, has been well documented. But let me back up and tell you a little story. When I was running for Seattle City Council, it was a 3-day Jewish holiday. Those of you who know me well know that I am offline for 3 days. That means no phones, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury like Robinson Crusoe. It's as primitive as can be. So it's 3 days with synagogue and 3 days with eating and 3 days of family. It's wonderful. Until you get a note on your door from the Seattle Police Department, FBI Joint Task Force saying, we've been looking for you and need to contact you. With 8 hours left to go in the holiday where you can't use the phone, can't use the email, can't use anything else. So you freak out, because this is what happened to me. I came home from my in-laws' house after having a wonderful meal, and I'm like, this is great. I'm going to get a nap in. Longest 8 hours of my life, where I couldn't find out why they wanted to talk to me. And at the time, I owned my event rental company, so I'm thinking, oh my God, a bounce house blew away, and God forbid some kid's dead, and now I'm getting indicted or something. What happens? I come back online, and what do I find out? There had been death threats against my family. There's a website called 8chan for white supremacist types. And my family, including my children, had been posted up there, and the neo-Nazis were planning to kill me. That was what I was told. That's what I saw. I saw the post myself up on the website. It's all there. And when I finally got a hold of the FBI, SPD, Joint Task Force people, they said, yeah, there's been this credible threat against you and your family. And when they closed the case without ever doing any real investigating, which really, that's a whole nother story we'll get to another time, I had to hire my own investigators to find out who did it. And what did we find out? It was a socialist activist who went on the white supremacist website in order to rile up the neo-Nazis against me and my family. That's how fun-loving our socialist, Marxist, communists are here in Seattle. Why am I telling you this story? Because when it happened to me, nobody condemned it. Took a while. Took Mayor Jenny Durkin 10 whole days before she said anything. Jewish organizations, the AJC, came out with a statement. And a couple of the other candidates who were running in my race came out with some pretty weak statements. Nobody said anything real. I remember a few weeks later, somebody defaced one of the signs of a black candidate. And immediately, within 20 minutes, boom, 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 condemnation, 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 condemnation. You know who never condemned this thing? Oh, sorry, I should rephrase that. You know who didn't condemn this thing right away? The ADL. The ADL was MIA. Took, what, a week, 2 weeks before enough people leaned on the ADL and go, there is a Jew who has death threats against him from a white supremacist site. How come you haven't condemned the hatred against him? How come you haven't condemned this? This is right in your wheelhouse. Oh, because Ari Hoffman's a conservative. Because Ari Hoffman's more right-leaning. That's my guess. I don't like the ADL. The ADL is a mouthpiece for the Democrat Party, and they have been for decades. They were started with all the best intentions, by the way. They were started to combat anti-Semitism. It's been a long time since they did that, and they've had a real crisis of their own identity ever since October 7th, because they don't really know what to do when all the people they thought were their buddies on the left have turned against them and were revealed to be supporters of Hamas. The National Educators Association, the NEA, run by Randy Weingarten. By the way, Randy Weingarten had a great post for July 4th. She wished everybody a happy July 4th, but she spelled fourth, number 4, RTH. That's the person in charge of the teachers' union. Well done. She deleted it when she got ratioed so hard for it. So the National Educators Association, the NEA, the second largest teachers' union of public school teachers in the entire U.S., had their annual conference last weekend. And they voted for new business item number 39. That the NEA will not use, endorse, or publicize any material from the Anti-Defamation League, such as curricular materials or statistics. NEA will not participate in ADL programs or publicize ADL professional development offerings. The ADL pushes their far-left progressivism, and they're cutting them off. Why? Because they're Jewish. No matter how left you are, you're still just a Jew to the NEA. So, according to Mando Weiss, allowing the ADL to determine what constitutes anti-Semitism would be like allowing the fossil fuel industry to determine what constitutes climate change. So wait a second. You're telling me that the Jews don't get to say what anti-Semitism is anymore? No, they don't want that anymore. Imagine if somebody said African Americans don't get to tell you what racism is anymore. Hispanics don't get to tell you what racism is anymore. So they literally did this because they are such anti-Semites, they don't want anybody, even the far left, like the ADL, calling them out. You want to know how you know I'm right? Remember the Council for American Islamic Relations, CARE, which has been called a branch of Hamas in the U.S., which was an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terror trial in U.S. history, which, by the way, you know what that trial was about? Funneling money to Hamas through a Muslim nonprofit organization here in the U.S. They welcomed the vote by the General Assembly of the National Education Association to stop using materials provided by the ADL, claiming they have an anti-Palestinian bias, a misuse of anti-Semitism to silence advocacy for human rights, and its history of opposing racial equality, movements for the black community, among other issues. The ADL has pushed every single far-left talking point except for anti-Semitism. So they are getting cut off from the largest teachers, second largest teachers union in the country because they stand against anti-Semitism sometimes. This is pure Jew hatred right here. If CARE is celebrating your decision, you know you made the wrong one. And I remind you last week that Randy Weingarten was kind of happy about the Supreme Court decision, the one that said that they can't impose the radical LGBTQ plus curriculum in the classroom. And I said at the time, I bet you the reason she's happy about this is because the family that sued was a Muslim family named Muhammad, and they didn't want that stuff in the classroom. And she didn't want to tick off the Islamists. Looks like I was 100% right. They didn't want to tick off the Islamists. Instead, let's keep more anti-Semitism in the classrooms. My friends, if you haven't already pulled your kids from public schools, do you know there's advantages to putting your kids in private schools, new tax write-offs that were in the one big beautiful bill that most people have no idea or even then there? I didn't know they were in there, and I got a press release about it today that I'm very, very excited about. Get your kids out of the public schools. It is being controlled by the far left and being controlled by radical Islamists. That's who's in charge of your kids' education. What do you think they're going to turn into? A blue-hair LGBTQ plus pro-Hamas advocate. That's what it's going to be, because that's what they want to brainwash your kid to become, no matter how contradictory those ideologies are going to be. That is what the public schools are gearing up to do to your children. Pull your kids out of the public schools now. They are not the public schools you went to when you were a kid. When we come back, my friends, other good news for tax breaks. Churches can now endorse political candidates? Is that legal? We will make it legal. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, you only have until 5 o'clock to enter that keyword for your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. No, I'm not going to give you that keyword again. You should have been listening at 4 o'clock. But reminder to be listening at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning during the morning ride with Phil and Zach for your next chance to win. And listen to us, of course, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon every single weekday for your chance to win fantabulous prizes. We also have the good news giveaway coming up at 5:45. Well, this was actually a fascinating discussion that we had last week. Not yesterday. Last week at my synagogue. Adam Smith, congressman from Washington, had said some pretty awful stuff about Israel. And the discussion was, can we legally send him a letter about how upset we were about what he said doesn't mess with our 501c3? And a lot of people have a fundamental misunderstanding of what a 501c3 does, your nonprofit status with the IRS, which allows you to get donations and such. So, for religious organizations, you basically can't endorse candidates. That makes you a 501c4. You want to be active in politics? Go ahead. But the other thing you have to do if you can't endorse candidates, it is that if you give the forum to one candidate, you have to give it to their challenger as well. Basically, you can't take a side. That's basically my understanding of the 501c3. So us sending our congressman a letter saying we weren't happy with something he did is well within what you're allowed to do. And he was actually kind enough to respond. I disagree with his response, but he was kind enough to respond, and that was very, very nice of him. I won't get into the specifics of it. It was our community thing about Adam Smith, and we've had him on the show all the time. And you know what? One day we'll have him back on to discuss that stuff more. But fascinating news came out today that the Internal Revenue Service has staked out the position that churches may discuss electoral politics without running afoul of tax-exempt status law. The truth is, for me, I never thought this was an issue. It was when you actually endorse somebody. According to Fox Business, the IRS and other parties involved in the lawsuit expressed this view during a court filing. Quote, the text of the Johnson Amendment may cause certain otherwise tax-exempt organizations to lose their 501c3 status if they participate in or intervene in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for public office. But the document argues that internal church discussion regarding politics does not violate the Johnson Amendment. Quote, bona fide communications internal to a house of worship between the house of worship and its congregation in connection with religious services do neither of those things any more than does a family discussion concerning candidates. Thus, communications from houses of worship to its congregation in connection with religious services through its usual channels of communication on matters of faith do not run afoul of the Johnson Amendment as properly interpreted. The document notes that the parties request this court to enter the attached proposed order enjoining defendants as well as their successors, agents, and employees from enforcing the Johnson Amendment against plaintiff churches based on speech by a house of worship to its congregation in connection with religious services through its primary channels of communication on matters of faith concerning electoral politics viewed through the lens of religious faith. The filing comes in a case that was brought against the IRS last year by national religious broadcasters Sand Springs Church, First Baptist Church Wascom, and Intercessors for America. So here's basically the idea. You know, the people who founded this country, they were really big churchgoers. They were really big into their church stuff. Do you know what it says on the Liberty Bell? Everybody knows this, right? Proclaim liberty throughout the land. You know where that quote's from? The Bible. You know what book it's from? Leviticus. They didn't have Google back then. So they literally had to know this stuff cold because that's a really big book to flip through to see if you remember the section it's in. These guys knew the Bible better than I know the Bible. And they picked a quote from Leviticus. For those of you who don't study the Bible, Leviticus is not the exciting book. You got the Genesis, that's exciting, all the fun with Abraham and his sons and Joseph and his brothers and all this, and creation of the world and floods. In Exodus, you got the story of the Jews and slavery in Egypt, then the plagues and the splitting of the sea and the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Exciting, exciting stuff. Then you've got Numbers, which is really badly translated because Bamidbar actually means in the desert. Exciting stuff happening there. Rebellions against Moses. I mean, ground opening up and swallowing people. And then you've got Deuteronomy, Devarim, which in our word just means things, What that is, it's a recap of all the fun, all the exciting stuff, and all the blessings and curses and all that. Leviticus, not exciting. How you do temple offerings and how many bulls you bring and how many rams you bring and how many sheep you bring and what kind of sacrifices you do. Not exciting stuff. You have to really know your Bible to say, yeah, in Leviticus it says proclaim liberty throughout the land, and we're going to put it right there on the Liberty Bell. Churches, synagogues, mosques have been involved in politics for a very, very long time. This was a country founded on Judeo-Christian values of people saying, yes, we came here for free exercise of religion, not restricted exercise of religion. So if your church or synagogue or whatever your religious organization is wants to discuss politics, go right ahead and do it. It's when you start actually endorsing candidates, that's when you get into trouble, and that's when you need a 501c4, which is a different tax designation. And if you want to have a branch of your church or your synagogue or whatever that does that, you can set one of those up and you can go do that. But discussing these things, having politically themed events at your church, at your synagogue, not an issue. Communicating with your congresspeople who represent you about things that affect the synagogue or the church, not an issue. And it's a good thing the IRS is finally clarifying these things so people aren't as confused as they used to be. I know this is an ongoing argument with any nonprofit, religious nonprofit I do any work for or volunteer for. When we come back, I got a fascinating text during the break. It says, Ari, you grew up right near AOC. Why don't you tell us what life was like in Westchester County? You know what? I think I'm going to tell you about AOC growing up in Westchester County when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I hear good things about that Ari Hoffman show. Welcome back to the show. We got a great text from Bruce a little bit earlier in the show. Bruce always has great texts. He wrote to Big Mike. He says, I was intrigued early on the broadcast today when Ari said he grew up quite close to where AOC was raised in Westchester County, New York. It made me think that Ari should have a once-a-week segment about his experiences growing up in that part of the country. I am sure he has lots of interesting anecdotes from his youth. Perhaps you could answer some questions from the listeners. Okay. You want to know what it was like growing up near AOC? During the commercial break, I looked up how far away my childhood home was from AOC's home. Yes, you can do that. It's amazing. It's amazing. I can remember my childhood address over on Vivian Drive from when I was a kid, but I can't remember what I had for breakfast 3 days ago. I mean, really amazing. So it's a 30-minute drive from my childhood home to where AOC grew up. We both grew up in Westchester County. Westchester County is a suburb that is north of the city, north of New York City, north of Manhattan. And I will tell you something, it is really tough growing up in Westchester County. When I was a kid and I wanted to go somewhere, I had to ride my bike to the Gap so I could buy clothing. That was tough.
At least you had a Gap.
Oh, well, that's
I'd have to take the bus into Everett where I grew up. And no one wanted to take the bus into Everett.
It was hard. The Gap was like a mile away from my house, and there was other shopping near the Gap. I mean, when I was a little kid, my mom would drag me to Lord & Taylor, and I would have to sit in that dressing room, and every boy knows what that is like, and it's not a pleasant experience. It was tough. Tough being dragged to Lord & Taylor and being in that dressing room as a child because you didn't have a babysitter. I will tell you that. That's why we need free child care so moms can go to Lord & Taylor, right? Right? Must have been rough for AOC. I know that my house, and it was a modest house. It wasn't a huge mansion or anything like that. It had half an acre backyard. I mean, it was really a lot of fun growing up there, a little stream going through in the back. And you know what? There was like no crime ever. It was really, really tough. When I had to do a research project, I had to go to the Scarsdale Public Library. And let me tell you, this library had every book you could possibly think of, and their movie takeout section and CD section was incredible. It had a whole fountain thing outside. It was beautiful for a public library. No homeless people anywhere. If you went to our downtown where there was ice cream and stuff in the movie theater, you know what was there? It looked like Hill Valley. Right out of Back to the Future. Little small town America. And you know, every year, man, we were such a small town. We had the Westchester County Fair. Every single growing up in Westchester was tough. You're on the Long Island Sound where you can go to the beach and you can hang out with friends. Man, it was tough. Police were everywhere. Because there was no crime, so they had nothing to do all day, so they're always patrolling. Police were everywhere. AOC must have had it really tough growing up. Really, really tough, just like I did. I had it so tough growing up. Those bike rides to Food Emporium, which was a really high-end grocery store, man, that was tough. Really tough. And there was a Carvel right nearby. Carvel's that amazing ice cream. And if I didn't like the Carvel, there was a Haagen-Dazs nearby, too. I had such a rough upbringing. I'm sure I totally understand where AOC's coming from now. Totally get it.
I see what you're doing here, but, you know, I grew up in Snohomish County, and there's plenty of places there I wouldn't want to roam around at night. I mean, you know.
Oh, well,
and by the way, Carvel, I tried to go to them in Philly.
Yeah.
I actually did make it to one.
Yes.
It was shared with a Wetzel's Pretzels.
We didn't have Wetzel's
So all you could get was like 2 flavors of soft serve.
Oh, no, that's not where you want to go. You don't want to go there. You want the place which sells the flying saucers. That's the ice cream sandwiches, which are in a thing. Okay, I'm sorry I let you down.
That was close.
I'm sorry I let you down, but Carvel's my favorite kind of ice cream. Here's the thing. I did live in the Bronx when I first got married. I lived in a place called Riverdale. And just like you're saying, Kevin, there are parts of the Bronx that are nice and parts of the Bronx that are not so nice. Are there areas that are not so great in Westchester County? Absolutely. But you know what they did? They bulldozed them and they built New Rock City, which is this massive mall, which has mini golf and it's got go-karts and it's got movie theaters. Yorktown Heights, where they have like rummage sales and they have like rhubarb sales and they have like church events. Not exactly from the block, if you know what I'm saying, which is probably why AOC is now insisting she grew up between the Bronx and Give me a break. You know what's between the Bronx and Yorktown Heights? New Rochelle, White Plains, Eastchester. Really, really hard upbringing right there on the Long Island side. Rye, where they have Rye Playland. You know where Big, the movie Big with Tom Hanks, the amusement park and all that, that is Rye Playland. That old school kind of amusement. Really tough upbringing right there, AOC. I know what you went through. I feel for you.
Let's get back to more important stuff. Mr. Softy was the better, superior
Mr.
soft
Softy
serve
is kosher.
when I was there.
Mr. Softy is kosher.
Very
Mr.
good.
Softy is very, very
Rita's
good.
Italian ice.
They're
Fantastic.
Oh my God, I love
Fantastic.
those things. Used to buy them in Central Park. Rough upbringing, like I said, the Marino's Ices. When we come back, my friends, more politics. We'll also have our final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, even your feedback on my upbringing and AOC. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories. Streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the King County Fair. But before we get to any of that, you guys are like obsessed with my dating life in high school and middle school over on the text line. John says over on the text line, Ari, maybe you had a chance to hit on AOC in a bar. Dude, there's a line I want to say on the radio where I wouldn't touch that with something, but I can't say that on the radio because I get in trouble with the FCC for saying these things. But that's a big no, my friend. Bruce, the man who originally started this conversation. Ari, tell us about the time you were enticed by I'm not going to say the word. It's a bad Yiddish word outside your faith. What is with you guys? You guys started off so good, and then you guys go right down to the gutter. Not good, people. Not good. I do like the person who mentioned over here. They said, I worked at Lord & Taylor in Manhasset before I went to Nassau Community College. I got plenty of relatives who went to Nassau Community College. This one from John also says, Ari, I left New York in 1987 for the same reason you did. I'm established, but have experienced the same kind of cost increases as you. Exactly right. This is why a lot of people came to other places. But now, unfortunately, due to bad management, bad political decisions, it's gone just as expensive around here. This one from Mike. People came here for their own religious freedom, not necessarily that of others. In colonial times, certain denominations were barred from certain colonies. Methodists, Lutherans, etc. were barred from certain colonies. This reverberates until today, even though restrictions have been lifted long ago. I'm not sure it's that. I think it's more you go where your community is. So, for example, why do I live in Seward Park? We all know what we call Seward Park, which is why my people live there. We all know this, right? And at one point, we all said we got to get out of the Central District because things are really bad around here. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from John in Lakewood. John, what's up, man?
Yeah, you were talking earlier about how who's allowing churches to now engage in political speech as 501c3s.
The IRS. It's the IRS themselves.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the IRS. Man.
Rather anything.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that bothers me, though, about not-for-profit status generally is I don't think that religious freedom, which helped America be established, had anything to do with taxation of any sort back then. And so when taxation got involved, I think it corrupted the whole notion of what service-oriented organizations and versus profit-making ones are, and whether they can or not be involved in political speech. And my thought on the subject is, I've studied it. There's 501(c)(3)s, C3s, C4s, C5s, C6s. There's C7s, and the law, and it becomes very muddy, and it's not very well defined. And I think that there's been a huge abuse over the years. There's no reason why, if I donate to a not-for-profit that has a certain purpose, okay, let's say it's Alliance for Gun Responsibility. I'm a Second Amendment guy, but I'm going to play devil's advocate because you are the most pro-devil show on the radio. Yeah.
Yes. How you can tell John listens every day. Yes.
Alliance for Gun Responsibility has as its affiliates a civic-oriented organization that's a 501c3, and it's also linked to another one whose mission is dedicated to protesting at the immigration detention site in Tacoma, and they've done that. So now we have a problem, okay? We have a problem, especially since government and not-for-profits move money back and forth between themselves. If I donate to Alliance Gun Responsibility because I believe in anti-gun stuff, why do they have the right to shift that money to a organization that does exactly what I don't
John,
want?
I'm just going to cut. I'm going to cut you off here and stop you right here because I think that what you're saying is you want to get rid of nonprofits, and here's I think the problem. I think here's a middle ground. I think here's this, John, is that a lot of people we're not actually monitoring the nonprofits. We're not actually enforcing any of the laws regarding nonprofits, any of the regulations regarding nonprofits, and I think we'd have a lot less funny business, like the kind of stuff you're describing, if we actually did that kind of stuff. And I think that one of the things the IRS is doing today is they are saying, okay, here's going to be our line. Your line is here, because don't forget, a lot of the stuff is already in the regulations. Just nobody's actually enforcing it. And then by the time you find out you've got a monster on your hands, you're stuck with the Holy Land Foundation, which was the largest Muslim charity in the U.S., which was funneling money to Hamas and other terrorist groups. So by the time you recognize you have this multi-headed hydra that you've created, or here's another one for you. Let's take the Palestine Chronicle. The Palestine Chronicle is an outlet whose journalist was holding hostages in his apartment in Gaza, but they have a 501c3 based right here in Washington. One, why is a newspaper a 501c3? And two, why has nobody looked into this when their journalist, and I'm using air quotes, was holding hostages in Gaza? That's the problem you run into.
Yeah, Ari, a very extensive explanation for what I think is going on.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm just saying I had experience with it. I worked for Long Island University, not-for-profit, and I saw how there is abuse in expenditures because at that time, I don't know how it operates anymore, but they had restricted accounts. They had to expend all that money or be faced with not having budgets that they could, show us being operated in a not-for-profit way.
That's exactly what I'm saying, John. What I'm saying, John, is what we really need to do is we need to look into these nonprofits rather than just letting everybody do what they want and follow the actual regulations. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I am not one of these people who was down the Epstein conspiracy theory world. That was just not my jam. But the more stuff that we're finding out now, it's kind of turned me into one of these conspiracy theorists. So, wait a second. You guys do all we elect President Trump, and he says we're going to look into what's going on with Epstein and what's going to be happening with the files and the client list and Ghislaine Maxwell and all that stuff. And now, after all that, now you're saying there was nothing there? There was nothing there the whole time? I'm confused. If there was nothing there, why is Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in jail? No, seriously, I'm very, very confused by all this nonsense. Let's go back to February 20th, sitting on her desk, waiting for review.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
Okay. So there's a client list. There's a file. She hasn't seen anything exciting in it. Remember that they have this whole event at the White House where the people who are the biggest Epstein investigator ones, they hand them binders, and they look at these binders, and they open the binders, and they're not binders full of women. There's nothing in these binders, nothing of consequence in these binders, nothing new, nothing interesting. Then in May, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino say that Epstein killed himself. So he bent himself over backwards and hung himself and killed himself and shot himself and strangled himself and stabbed himself and all that other stuff in the room?
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work.
Wait. Okay, hang on. Bongino, who would rail on air about how Epstein didn't kill himself and Bill Clinton and all this other stuff. Now Epstein killed Kash Patel, who's definitely not a pro-Clinton kind of guy. Wait, he killed what? What? A lot of people are disappointed by all this. What's going on here? I'm confused now. What are you guys finding in these files?
This is so frustrating. It's like it's been going on since like JFK and before. It's like you say this stuff, just show us why you are so certain of it.
Exactly. So if you're so certain Epstein killed himself, show us why. So they released this video. This video, which is what, 12 hours of his cell room to show you?
11 hours?
Yeah. Now, let's back up a second.
Yeah.
Number one, that cell door don't look like the cell door they showed us originally with all the tape on it that says crime committed here.
But you
Ain't
don't
the
even
same.
see it, though. You only see him coming in and out of the block. You don't get to see the actual cell.
What are you talking about? I saw very clearly a lady in a blue pantsuit with blonde dyed hair walk right into that cell. She did it herself. But now there's a minute missing of the footage?
Yes, there's a
minute.
minute.
Let me give you an explanation why. But remember what we were told originally? There is no video. We don't have any video. The video was turned off. Weren't there guys who were reassigned and punished for that?
I think it's the direct video of the actual cell. Did you watch this video that they have? It's just like one section of a hallway, and they say you can only get in or out through this access point.
I gotcha.
That's why, and it's still like, okay. I mean, I'm seeing one door going into this, and then there's a minute missing, and they say it has something to do with the time coding, but it's clearly, it skips. There's footage missing.
It skips as badly as the video on the bus in Speed, where you see the lady adjusting her skirt.
Correct, yeah.
And you go, no. That's Dennis Hopper is very mad looking at that video. Very, very mad. This is turning me into a conspiracy theorist, and then there's something else. If you guys really believe all this, then send out Pam Bondi. Send out Dan Bongino. Send out Kash Patel. Instead, you send that really nice White House press secretary out there to take the heat for you guys? That's not cool.
So the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network, on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Okay, so there's one of two things here. Either there never was anything here and it was blown up on the right, or something's being covered up. It's one or the other. There's no middle ground. Now, let's say maybe Donald Trump wants to make some deals with some people. I don't mean business deals. I mean political deals. And the deal that was struck was, you want to make these deals, you do not out those files. We'll just put that out there for a second. People saying Donald Trump's in the files. Guys, if Donald Trump was in these files, the Democrats would have sent them out long time ago. You think they would have left anything on the table if he was in the files?
I don't think they go out because there's friends of theirs that are in the files as well, right? So I think there's been a silent agreement, this is my theory, that the list of people are so far in reaching between whatever your beliefs are and what politics and all of that stuff, that I think that they've all just agreed to, you know what, let's
shove this over there. We don't want to do it. Now, here's my thing.
And I do think he probably was involved as an informant, and that's why the FBI or somebody is, all those different organizations are like, no, it's all good here.
Well, that actually backs up some things. Apparently, the only person who volunteered to be interviewed by the FBI about the Epstein files was Donald Trump, so he could say what he knew was going on there and the stuff he heard about and the stuff he found out about. Now, one logical explanation came from a reporter on the left named Michael Tracy. I disagree with Michael Tracy on everything. Literally, there is nothing we agree on. This was an interesting take he posted to social media. And I looked through his other chat, and everything he writes is crazy. This is the only thing that made a little bit of sense, but I want to know what you think about it. So let me read it to you before you yell at me. The key Epstein victim, who made the most sensational claims of being trafficked to a powerful third-party individual, Virginia Giuffre, was not even called by prosecutors as a witness in the 2021 Ghislaine Maxwell criminal trial because her credibility was in such tatters. The whole mythology around this case largely based on claims of one mentally unstable serial fabulist Giuffre, who eventually had to admit in a civil settlement that she had falsely accused Alan Dershowitz of depraved sexual crimes for nearly a decade. By the way, that backs up what Dershowitz was always saying. He says, if you truly believe I was there, then charge me. He's been saying that from the beginning. Then charge me, and she had to pay out. Nonetheless, she was able to eventually extract a few £1 million from Prince Andrew, the only other third-party individual she actually sued, despite naming a huge array of prominent individuals over the years with zero credible evidence, and despite having the dogged assistance of some of the most high-powered attorneys in the world. Prince Andrew was in the throes of a PR disaster after his infamous 2019 BBC interview, so opting for a settlement with royal family funds rather than standing trial in the U.S. was probably a sensible course of action from his perspective. This was the sole third-party settlement Giuffre ever successfully reached, despite claiming she was trafficked to an extraordinary cross-section of prominent individuals, including George Mitchell, Bill Richardson, Marvin Minsky, etc. None of the women who testified in the Maxwell criminal trial claimed they were trafficked to third parties. Giuffre, clearly in the grips of a worsening psychological crisis, died earlier this year. She killed herself. Unfortunate, but this doesn't change the fact that so many of her wild, extravagant claims turned out to be totally baseless, despite serving as the evidentiary foundation for the Epstein mythology, which continues to persist despite an increasingly tenuous connection to any observable reality, having been egged on recently by a lot of people on the right. So, he adds the entire Epstein saga has long since turned into an enormous cash cow, even with J.P. Morgan settling for $290 million simply because Epstein was a former client. The feeding frenzy litigation has been endless from every angle and is still ongoing. We're supposed to believe that not one of these rich and powerful American men to whom everyone assumes Epstein must have trafficked scores of children could have successfully sued at any point in the past 10 years and coerced a generous settlement, particularly in the context of the Me Too mania, from which this affair gained such outsized cultural notoriety? This guy even says Epstein himself was a dirtbag and openly confessed a pathological obsession with procuring teenage girls for himself, but the grander web of creepy conspiratorial intrigue that's enveloped this case and turned it into a weird, tantalizing, unfalsifiable mythology that won't go away is just an extension of the unhinged fabulism pioneered by the original accuser. Do you believe this take on it? Or are you more akin to what Kevin and I were discussing, that maybe this is something the powerful people have just decided to sweep under the rug? Look, like I said, I disagree with this reporter on basically everything else. But right now, nobody's doing themselves any favors. Show us the file. Release the entire file. If there's nothing there to see, you release those binders before, release the file, and we'll all look like idiots, including Ricky Gervais. We'll all look stupid. Release the file. And I'm not even an Epstein conspiratorial person, but you have now made me one with all this.
Yeah, at this point, you just have to do that.
Yes.
And whatever you've been hiding, just come clean on it. Oh, he was a CIA agent, or he worked for the FBI, or he did this. And we didn't want sensitive stuff to get out there.
Sure.
Say that, fine. But here's the other thing, too, is I think it's very plausible that the guy did commit suicide, and I think that they made it a little bit more easier for him to do so.
But perhaps that's a way to go. But here's something I keep coming back to. Bill Clinton getting the massages from the young girls in the airport, which there are pictures of, which were all over the internet. Which
he had lower back issues. Things were going on. Very tight shoulders. Very tight shoulders.
Yes. You know that Hillary's just whacking him with a binder or something. Like, are you kidding me? Again? Are you kidding me? This is even before Lewinsky, and you're kidding me? I mean, there's something there, guys. Just release the whole thing. Because today, when Pam Bondi is being asked about this, and I like Pam Bondi. I'm not one of these people on the right that goes, oh, she only goes on Fox News. This was her explanation.
And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing.
Okay. I've seen enough Ocean's 11 movies. I know how this works. You time your Hudson Hawk. That's better. Hudson Hawk. You time your crime to swing in on a star because that's when the video resets itself and the fat guard won't actually see you stealing the thing, and then you can go build Da Vinci's gold machine or whatever it was. Really? Okay, so a minute's missing, and everybody knows the minute's missing, and that's where you can do this stuff. Release the whole file. Now, President Trump was basically telling the reporters at the time, like, guys, we're really still discussing this?
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the set?
Yeah, sure.
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy?
Yeah, that's kind of like, we got people dying in Texas. We got the Middle East. We got all this stuff. And you guys are worried about this entire thing? I'll tell you what, KVI Nation, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know if you think, yeah, he didn't kill himself now because Pam Bondi says so. Or you think, oh, yeah, he was definitely a Fed informer. Or, yeah, for sure Bill Clinton was on that island. He had frequent flyer miles to that island. I want to know what you think. Give me all the crazy. Give me all the crazy. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Let us have it. Give us your theories on Jeffrey Epstein. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including your theories. Plus, President Trump calls out Chuck Schumer for being in deep trouble because AOC is more popular. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broilers gift card and a ticket, or several tickets, as a matter of fact, 4 tickets to the King County Fair, July 17th through 20th. Yet another reason. Always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I said, give me all the conspiracy theories on Epstein, so we go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ted in Snoqualmie. Ted, what do you think?
Well, Ari, I want to know if Jeffrey Epstein only trafficked teenage girls to Jeffrey Epstein. Why did Melinda Gates divorce Bill?
There used to be an old saying, you never know what goes on in somebody's bedroom or boardroom. I think the cell phone changed that for a lot of reasons. But, yeah, that was part of this whole thing. Remember, didn't Bill and Melinda Gates, the rumor was that it was all over what was going on Jeffrey Epstein's island and that he was flying there all the time, right? That was something like that.
And flying there is a whole nother issue. There used to be a YouTube channel called Gulfstream Girl, and Gulfstream Girl was one of the young women who started out trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein, and apparently part of their arrangement was that she got qualified as an air transport pilot and was flying as co-pilot on his Gulfstream jet that he used to transport people to the island.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not going to look that up to verify it because that's going to mess with my YouTube algorithms. I'm just going to take your word for it. I'm not going to say whether it's true or not.
I found it in 2013 watching aviation videos, and I didn't think it was that interesting till I read the comments, and the tail number on the jet was registered to Jeffrey Epstein.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to wait for one of the documentaries on net. Wait, that's going to mess up my algorithms too. Then it's going to want me to watch all the weird conspiracy murder shows and stuff. Ted, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one from Daniel in Tacoma. I like the theory that Alec Baldwin killed the cinematographer on purpose because she was about to do a documentary on Epstein Island and those flight records showed Baldwin was a frequent... Man, this is great. I mean, I am not vouching for any of this stuff. Not at all. This one here from David Ari. Trump is vastly misreading the MAGA room when it comes to Epstein. The vast majority want to see the arrests. I bet if you did a 24-hour pinned X poll asking whether Bondi should resign or be fired for lying. No. That's not the X poll. The X poll should be, not to disagree with you, David, but to disagree with you. The X poll should be, do you want to see a release of all the files? Are you satisfied with all that? I don't care about Bondi getting fired or not fired. That's not the issue here. Because up until today, what was everybody mad about at Bondi about? Oh, she spends more time on Fox News than she does on actually doing her job. Everybody from that administration is on Fox News all the time. I don't think that's a fair complaint about her. Everybody wanted the Epstein files. They didn't get what they wanted. Just put the whole thing on the internet like you did with the JFK stuff. You guys did that with the JFK, with the RFK. Put it all online. Somehow after that, us Jews were still blamed for JFK. We had nothing to do with it. And they're like, Mossad killed JFK.
You know, they'll do the same thing, though. They're going to wait until everyone's long gone and no one's hurt and all the rumors have come out and we all know already, like, you know, how JFK was a womanizer and all this. Well, they didn't want any of that to get out way back when. And how many years later they finally do it. It's going to be something like that.
Yeah. So here, I went to the Mob Museum in Vegas. I had never been to the Mob Museum before. We went there. There was a whole wall about the mafia and JFK and all the conspiracy theories surrounding the mafia and JFK right there on the wall. Some things, no matter how much proof you have for, against, whatever the case may be, people are not satisfied. The Epstein thing was such a big deal. And think about in the years since, it has been blown up into a bigger deal. When Ricky Gervais does an entire comedy routine surrounding it at the Golden Globes as one of the best hosting gigs you have ever seen, I want to go back and watch that tonight. Then all of a sudden it takes on a whole nother level, especially when you see the reaction of the celebrity faces where you're like, Tom Hanks, why do you look like that, Tom Hanks? Why you got that goofy look on your face, Tom Hanks? We know you weren't always the serious actor guy. We all saw Bachelor Party. We know about donkeys and what goes on in that movie. This one here from Daniel, he says, Ari Daniel. Okay, this one says, longtime listener, first-time texter. I've been hearing some talk that Epstein may have had ties to the intelligence community, possibly even Mossad. We don't want him. We don't claim him. And that Benjamin's secret visits to the White House could somehow be connected. Okay, Bibi Netanyahu coming because of the Epstein files? Really? That's where we're going down all here? Oh, and now people are telling me how to get around the algorithms for me to watch the YouTube video. No, guys, no. I'm not watching the YouTube video. I do like all the engagement on this. This is good stuff. Guys, Benjamin Netanyahu came to the White House to discuss the fact that Iran may still have nuclear weapons, to discuss the fact that Syria is about to sign peace agreements, to discuss sanctions on Iran, no sanctions on Iran, to discuss what's going on in the Middle East. I think they got more important things than Jeffrey Epstein to discuss. A guy who's been dead for how many years now? What are we looking at? Like almost a decade at this point? Something crazy like that? I do love the fun, though. You guys keep bringing it. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Speaking of Bibi Netanyahu's visit, when we come back, we're going to discuss some of the things that we're talking about, but also why Chuck Schumer is really afraid of AOC, according to President Trump. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to go check out the new and improved KVI.com. That's right. You can see articles from me, movie reviews from Mike, stuff from the morning show. Plus, while you're there, a reminder to become a KVI insider. That way you're on our email list. And don't worry, we don't give out your information, but we do tell you about fantabulous events and amazing giveaways that we are having. So just a reminder, head on over to KVI.com and become a KVI insider. So I love that we elected a comedian in chief. President Trump is really, really funny. During this cabinet meeting, he was sitting around talking about how if he wants anything from anybody's office, he's just going to take it. Everybody was cracking up, including Marco Rubio, who seems to be the butt of the joke here.
Marco pointed it out. I was going to leave the clock. So as president, you have the power. If I go into the State Department or Department of Commerce or Treasury, if I see anything that I like, I'm allowed to take it. Do you believe this? So I'm in Marco's. I see this gorgeous clock, grandfather clock, and there it is. I said, Marco. He didn't know about it. I had to read him the rule and regulation. I said, Marco, I love this clock. Look at it. It's beautiful. He said, what clock? I said, the clock that's in the other room is incredible, and nobody gets to see it there. Marco, I tried to talk him into it first, and it sort of worked, and then I had to use a little more. I said, I'd love to take that clock out and put it in the cabinet room. He said, no, are you serious? I said, Marco, I have the right to do it, Marco. And he said, all right, what the hell?
So he's taking the clock from the State Department, putting it in the cabinet room. I find that entertaining. It's all government property anyway. But I find him very, very entertaining, especially when he tells stories. He is a great storyteller. You know who's not so great at telling stories, or actually who's getting better at it? Kamala Harris's campaign staffers. According to the New York Post. All right, guys, you want conspiracy theories? Let's do some Taylor Swift ones. You ready for this one? Doug Emhoff was tasked with getting Taylor Swift to stump for his wife, Kamala Harris, on her ill-fated 2024 presidential campaign, but failed to seal the deal, according to a new book. I want to read this book. I don't even care who wrote it. I want to read it. Rumors swirled on election eve that chart-topping pop star would perform or at least make an appearance at the then vice president's final rally in Philadelphia, near Swift's hometown of West Reading. The Love Story singer, however, had apparently already rebuffed the former second gentleman's effort to get her to do anything more than endorse the failed Democratic presidential nominee. According to journalists Josh Dawson, Tyler Pager, and Isaac Arnsdorf, explaining their forthcoming book, 2024, How Trump Retook the White House and the Democrats Lost America. Now, I kind of have some skepticism over Doug Emhoff, because can you imagine Doug Emhoff, who's been accused of having not one, not two, but three affairs, I think it is at this point? I'm going to handle the Taylor Swift thing and leave it to me. Leave it to Doug. I want to talk to Taylor Swift. Can you imagine the reaction from everybody on the team about that one? Well, the young girls do like the Doug. Maybe we should send him on over there. This is all gross. All gross, all wrong. But Doug Emhoff was tasked with this? Well, like many other things, he apparently was not very good at it. Quote, Swift proved to be a special challenge, said the authors of the book. Staffers who worked on celebrity appearances were instructed not to make any outreach to her universe. Doug Emhoff was handling it because he was a former entertainment lawyer, had a prior relationship with Swift's attorney, and had reached out to him to convey that the campaign would appreciate any efforts the pop star could make to help Harris before Swift's surprise post-debate endorsement. Baldridge, who's the lawyer, devastatingly responded that the Harris camp, Swift would do what Swift thought was best. Nothing more than the endorsement ever materialized. Let me ask you a question. Did any of these endorsements actually help? I mean, they paid millions of dollars to all these celebrities to perform, and yet none of it actually helped out at all. Well, now there's more in this book, where apparently, according to the book, First Lady Jill Biden's political rise coincided with the end of her husband's political career. 1 year after Biden's consequential debate performance, the first octogenarian president's age has inspired congressional investigations and books detailing his alleged cognitive decline. The book is also detailing the influential role that Jill Biden played in her husband's administration. As Jill Biden gained political influence, so did Anthony Bernal, the First Lady's chief of staff and senior advisor and assistant to the president. He was subpoenaed to testify on July 16th because they think he's the guy running the auto pen, and yet didn't show up. He refused to do so. Hang on a second. Did they send Steve Bannon to jail for refusing a congressional subpoena? Didn't they do that? So why is Bernal not sitting in jail? Just kind of curious about that. Meanwhile, President of the United States, Donald Trump, was weighing in on Chuck Schumer because, well, let's put it this way. Chuck Schumer is in big, big trouble with his own party. They don't like him very much. They want to be far more radical than he wants to be, and somebody like AOC could easily take his Senate seat if they actually ran, especially from a city that likes this guy, Mamdani. Here's what the president said about Chuck Schumer's woes.
I saw a Palestinian senator. His name is Schumer. He's a great Palestinian. No, he's a Palestinian. He's become a Palestinian. He's abandoned the Jews.
By the way, fact check 100% true. Nobody likes Chuck Schumer anymore. Nobody likes Chuck Schumer. But the president went on to talk about how the fact that Chuck Schumer is so unpopular, he's worried about a challenge by AOC, which is why he is moving to the far, far left. You see how quickly Chuck Schumer endorsed Mamdani? By the way, whoever Cuomo hired to do oppositional research on Mamdani should be fired and never work in politics again. You always have somebody who's doing oppositional research. What oppositional research is, it's research on your opponent to find out whatever dirt there is so you can get it out in the campaign so that you can tar and feather them, metaphorically speaking, in the headlines, not literally. And then you don't have to worry about them anymore. Whoever did this for Cuomo did a terrible job because more stuff has come out since this guy became the Democratic nominee, and it was all on social media. This guy's got a picture of him wearing a plastic glove, giving the finger to a Chris Columbus statue. Why do you think he's wearing a plastic glove? Well, right after that picture was taken, somebody vandalized the statue. Gee, why do you think he was wearing the plastic glove? Probably because he didn't want to get paint all over his pretty little dainty hands. That's probably why. The amount of dirt that is coming out on this guy, Mamdani, do the Democrats realize how deep they've gotten in with the communists? How deep they've gotten in with the jihadis? Or is this just the party didn't realize they're like frogs on a hot plate? They didn't realize the heat was being turned up and up and up and up, and now they're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Or is it they're so desperate for power, they are clinging on by their fingernails to power, trying to stay relevant? That's what it seems like to me. Forrest Katz says over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, Dr. First Lady Dr. Jill will soon join the cast of The View for $5 million a year. No, I don't think even they want her. I don't think they want her. They didn't want Karine Jean-Pierre, so I don't think they want her. Oh, only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card plus 4 tickets to the King County Fair. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. So right outside my window today, right out there in the bay, is the U.S. Coast Guard Bark Eagle, the largest tall ship flying the American flag, and is visiting Seattle for the first time since 2008. According to Como News, the historic vessel will be open for public tours on July 9th and 10th at Pier 66, offering a rare opportunity to explore the only active square rigger in the U.S. government service. Okay, Kevin, if I'm late for work on Thursday, just telling you, I'm going to try and go down there and see the ship. I like the boats. I like this kind of stuff. So
well, Mike will be back by then.
And it'll be Mike's problem.
He can take care of it.
Okay. But yeah, that looks pretty cool. Tours will be available Wednesday, July 9th from 1 to 4 p.m. and Thursday, July 10th from 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, so the only day I can go see this thing is Thursday, and I got to be one of the first people online. Wait, no, in line. We're in Seattle. I'm not going on the internet. In line, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to make it after work. I think that's extremely unlikely. No tickets are required, and the tours are free of charge. Constructed in 1936 by the Baum & Voss shipyard in Hamburg, Germany, the Eagle was originally commissioned as the Horst Wessel by the German Navy. It became a war reparation for the United States following World War II. The 295-foot-long, three-masted bark boasts more than 22,300 square feet of sails and 6 miles of rigging. Since 1946, the Eagle has served as a classroom at sea and a leadership laboratory for future Coast Guard officers, providing an at-sea leadership and professional development experience as part of the Coast Guard Academy. The ship's visit to Seattle marks the 7th port of call for its 14-week journey along the West Coast. It looks magnificent out there. So right now it's anchored and its sails are down, but the American flag is waving off the back. It looks magnificent. It really, really does. In fact, I'm going to snap a picture of that sucker before I leave here today. Speaking of pictures, by the way, Como News also posted pictures of the T-Rex World Championship races at Emerald Downs. No, these are not computerized T-Rexes. No, they are the inflatable T-Rex costumes where people are running around racing each other. This reminds me of the family that loves messing with their kids when they come back from things. They always post videos of it. So I think it's the last day of school or something, and they're all dressed in the T-Rex, and the bus pulls up, and they all go chasing after the kid, and the kid runs in the house because he's embarrassed in front of all his friends. This is the same family where the bus comes home on the last day of school, and the dad and all his buddies have set up a band to look like Alice Cooper and crew, and they're singing School's Out for Summer and blasting it to the whole neighborhood. I definitely did parenting wrong from time to time. I should have taken advantage of that. But the problem was my kids didn't ride the school bus. I had to drive them every day. I rode the school bus. Oh, wait, that's another thing for my life growing up in Westchester. I had to take the school bus every day. Oh, AOC, such a rough life having to take that school bus every day to my Jewish private school on 22 acres of magnificent old mansion, square footage there on the Long Island Sound with a beach. What a rough life it must have been growing up in Yorktown Heights for AOC. Very, very rough. Oh, you're shaking your head. I know you want to say something.
I was just... the amount of kids I know that don't ride school buses, that get rides from their parents or friends or other parents, it's like, man, you're missing out on some. I have so many fond memories of talking about and doing stupid stuff on the bus.
I think my life education came from the school bus. I think
that's the other thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, everything I know in life I learned from the school bus. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life. For 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away 4 tickets to the King County Fair, the fair to see since 1863, July 17th through 20th at the Enumclaw Expo Center with carnival rides, free entertainment, livestock, shopping. Saddle up for heart-pounding action at the edge of your seat excitement. Grab your boots, get your tickets now for the King County Fair. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 4 tickets to the King County Fair. Phone lines are open now. Give Kevin a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's going to do it for us today, but fear not, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.